the early days, it was so wild west that it was just insane. It was every morning you'd wake up with like this new crazy idea. And when you could outrank, like I say, IBM for IBM, you know what I mean? That was just stupidity. They should never been able to do that. Google won't ban us because we make them so much money in AdSense. Most expensive link I ever bought was off a educational website, and it cost the client £10,000 a month. It was a PR10 website, and it took him from nowhere to number one for years. I honestly thought, oh, never ever told anyone this. Never told anyone this.
Hello and welcome to SEO Pioneers. Today I'm speaking to Dave Naylor. Dave was known as Dave N in the forums in the early days and has been known as one of the world's best SEOs. So I'm very much looking forward to speaking to you, Dave, and getting your inside on the early days of the industry. And so first of all, just to kick off, if you could tell me what your background in the early 90s was. Were you a hacker, a coder? How did you sort of come into and arrive at, whether it was building websites, or how did you arrive at SEO?
Well, back in the very early days, I used to do a lot in the gaming sector, realistically, like the Amiga 500s and Spectrums and like really old school gaming computers. But I was more into the hardware side of it. So I used to program EEPROMs to go inside them so that they could break stuff to stop you copying games and things like that, I guess. So that was mostly when I was about 17. Then cleaned up my act and got into printer repairs. I was a hardware engineer for maybe 8-9 years, and while I was still a hardware engineer, I was still programming to a certain extent, mainly EEPROMs, looking at machine code. And then I got into a little bit of Clipper and DBase programming, which is basically just bog standard database, search queries, this sort of thing. And that led into an intranet that led into things like we should publish some of this information on the big old web that's out there. And that was it, really. It was kind of like, that was my background. And the engineering manager at the time had left the company and set up a, what's the best way of describing it? If you wanted a computer, you'd go to a little computer hardware shop. They would build a computer for your specifications, whether it's for a home user or a business. Most businesses wanted technical support, so we had to do technical support. And most businesses wanted to get some sort of access to the internet. So we bought in a load of US robotics modems, and we bought in not a fiber line. It was I want to say a 10 gig, but I think it was most probably a 10 meg ISDN line that we patched in a load of US robotics modems that people could dial into and get out onto the web just for the local area. So we were a ISP, I guess. So we put some servers in there, started hosting some websites. And my programming background came back into the forte, and literally I built a website for a good friend of mine in the inkjet cartridge industry, and that was it. I was in the industry then. I was a programmer, a web designer, an ISP, a domain name registrar, hardware specialist, machine code programmer, an EEPROM programmer, and that was it. And so that was my forte into the internet world. A friend of mine, like I say, built the inkjet cartridge website for him. And one day he came to me and said, I'm paying this company £1,500 a month. And that was a lot of money. I mean, see, I'm talking 90, what would it have been? 96, maybe 97, around that sort of era. And literally, it was a search engine optimization company. And they just used web positioning gold on the website, built a load of gateway pages, stuck it in the back end, and just kept. It was a money back guarantee as well. I was like, money back guarantee? What are they actually guaranteeing? It's like, oh, they're guaranteed something. And I'm like, Stu, seriously, what did they guarantee? He's like, oh, well, search engine traffic. So obviously, geeky as I was, I jumped back in straight into the back end, got into the server logs, and we're like, you're getting nothing more over the last month than anything else. I'll keep an eye on it. And he's like, was it something you fancy doing? And I'm like, oh, Stu's like, I've got an ISP to run, like hardware support. I don't think there's any money in it, mate. I really don't. And he said, look, I will pay you a percentage of all online sales. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, he said, in cash? And I'm like, oh, I was like, let me have a look at it. And he's like, okay, then. So I'd look at it, and yeah, they built all these gateway pages, and literally search engines never even visit those pages. No, the only person that visited the pages was the company that was out in wherever they were, Manchester way, that were tweaking and uploading. So I blocked them straight away and was like, that's it. See if you can get your money back off them. I took the homepage link on front of his website into the gateway pages just to see if that would encourage the search engines to come into it. And they did. And it was like, okay, then it's like, I'm not getting much traffic from this. So I jumped onto a couple of forums and I bounced around a little bit from like Digital Point SEF, found my real home at Webmaster World, if I'm going to be honest. And it's like sat and lurked there, read and read and read and read. Programmed to sort of like Andrew WK and stuff like this in the middle of the night. My wife loved that sort of thing. So I'd program all the way through the night and then go to work all the way through the day and repeat and rinse, just trying to work out what these search engine people were actually trying to do. Read a few pages on like OPEC scores and stuff like this. And kind of like when actually I think I realized what they've done wrong. So I took their template, stripped it down, and then created the same template, but using my programming skills and a bit of my background technology, and created from their 10 pages, I went out and created something like 236,000 or something like that. And that did the trick. It was amazing. It was like, boom. It was like my first cash in hand was like 50 quid. I was like, that would be a meal out. That's amazing. And then the week after that, Stu was like, we're getting a lot of orders in, and these are the days that they didn't have like a back end system for taking credit cards. They'd print it out, they'd type it in, and then print the slip or staple it and send it out. They were doing mail order. It was kind of like the in catalogs and things like this. So they'd never had like 20 orders over the internet. So this guy was like whinging about it. Next day it was 30, then it was 40, then it was 50, then it was 100, then again 1,000. And it was like my commissions went from like 500, like 50 to 500 to like £3,000. And he's like, I can't just keep giving you £3,000 in cash. It's like, I can't get it out of the company. It's impossible. He said, why don't you come and work for me? So I went to my bosses and said, look, this is where I am. They said, well, look, we were looking at setting up 2 limited companies, Bronco Limited and STEM Limited. STEM was going to be the hardware side of it, which was also the profitable side of it. The Bronco side of it would be the ISP, the servers, the internet build stuff that we were doing, and that was just starting to pick up. And Stu said, remortgage your house, buy them out. That was a no-brainer. So I went home to my wife, who was on maternity leave with our son, not knowing whether she was going to go back to work or not. And I was like, can we remortgage the house and buy them out with the company? And she was like, yeah, okay. And that was it. Bronco was started and I was in massive debt. And so therefore I had to work like an absolute crazy man to see where we'd go from there. And literally convinced the inkjet guy to build another 10 inkjet websites and promoted those for a few years. And that was happy days.
What year was it that Bronco started? Was it 98?
90, I want to say 97, 96. It might be 98. It was the Bronco Limited was most probably 98. Was most probably limited, but Bronco was going for a few years as a company, but behind the doors it wasn't. It was under an umbrella company, if that makes sense. So yeah, it was late 90s when me and Becky, my wife, became directors and took control over it.
Yeah, just actually to say that for anybody watching this who doesn't know the north of England, Ripon is very much quite a outlier, a very, very small place. So for so much technology to be going on in such a small town was very unusual, particularly in 96. I mean, that was
groundbreaking. But that was me, you see. I used to love, it was like, I never used to fix things. I used to break things. It was like, I still do, you know what I mean? It's like, and that's why I was a good SEO, I guess. I just like to break search engines in a way.
So just talking about the, you were a hardware programmer, and so I guess that was obviously quite a natural transition. And do you think, to what extent do you think that really fed into being able to do your early exploratory work as to how SEO was working?
I don't. It's a tough one, really. I suppose that if you're a programmer, I think your brain's wired in a certain way. For me, I dream code. You know what I mean? I'd wake up in the middle of the night and go, "Oh my God, that's it. Why didn't I think about that? I'll do that in the morning, write it down, and next morning, or even get up and get my laptop out and do a bit of programming." And when I say a laptop, it was like I mean, it was bigger than like most desktops these days. I had a pull down screen with a full size keyboard on it. It was ace. But yeah, it was one of those things that I lived it, I dreamt it. That's all I ever thought about. And as a database programmer, that's all a search engine is. You know what I mean? It's just a database, and it's got queries. And there's still, you know what I mean? Okay, the queries and how they index it has got more complex over time. But back in the day, it wasn't. You know what I mean? When you're thinking of things like Yahoo search, it's like it wasn't a search engine; it was just a bloody directory. Alta Vista, I mean, that was all on page. So if you knew how to look at on page, you know what I mean? As in, like, I used to program HTML in Notepad, well, Notepad plus and stuff like this. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like, to me, I just see I wouldn't see things as pretty flashing imagery and gifs and swirly wheels and all this sort of stuff. I saw it as just blue and white text. You know what I mean? It was like, so everything that I thought about was that way. You know what I mean? So like the early stuff I was doing was like as an ISP. It was like we offered a load of free websites out, and I framed them all. Everything was in a frame. One frame for the website, one frame for the search engines, and I just stuck a load of links in there. And I was just like, yeah, that you get free hosting if you're on this frame. And the frame even had like the Bronco logo in it and who our clients of the month were. You know what I mean? So it was just kind of like, it was horrible link building hacking. But yeah, it was, you know what I mean? It's just how I thought, you know what I mean? It's like, as a search engine, you know what I mean? It's just a database. How do I get my data into that database? And how do I get my database queries to emulate their database queries? I bought UK Wiz from a Webmaster World guy, because that was a UK search engine at the time. I built a few search engines, weirdly enough. It's like none of them that you'd ever write home about, but stuff because I wanted to learn, you know what I mean, the complexities of our search engine at work.
If you do frame it in that way of it's a database and you're just querying it, it does totally put it in a different perspective and make it much easier to consider and break down.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, to me, it was simple. A spider was a data processing operator, a person who would just sit there and type in a form. You know what I mean? That spider was going out, getting data, bringing it back and injecting it into a database. And the front end system was just a query to that database. So if somehow you could magically get out of, say it was all done in SQL, if you get out of all the SQL queries, you'd have the index. And if you had the index, you'd be like, oh my God, I'm king of the world. Obviously, I never had the index and therefore was never king of the world. So it's kind of like, yeah. But we all lived in hope, and those are the things I dreamed of. You know what I mean? It's like I wasn't bothered about being like the best SEO in the world. I wanted to be able to click my fingers and magic happen. Sometimes it did. Sometimes you clicked your fingers and the whole world fell apart, and you're like, oh, we should turn that off now. Seriously, stop we need to think about this a little bit harder. How long can we stop what it's doing? 2 days. Okay, that's no, just turn it all off, unplug it. Let's just go on holiday, do something. Yeah, we had some bad experiments.
Can you describe one of those bad experiments?
Yeah, sure. I had a database of about 10 million web pages, all blogs, all comments. This is before no follow ever happened. And one line of code that I was messing around with just to try and speed it up. So we got threading going quite well. And I was like, that's still quite slow. So I was messing about and then changed a bit of code and off I went. And then one of the programmers was like, this is crazy. We're having telephone calls here, Dave. It's like our IP addresses are leaking. I'm like, yeah, well, that's fine. And there's a guy saying we've DDoSed him. I'm like, doesn't make sense. Went back in the slide, have a look at it. So these are the areas I changed. And said, you just took out the randomness of it, Dave. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, well, this guy's got like 20,000 blog pages and you're hitting them one after the next. You've taken the random number out of it. I'm like, oh, that wasn't the random number for how quick we're going to crawl. That was a random number to pick which web page we're going to crawl next. Yeah, that was a mistake. That was a big mistake. So basically, this one guy who was just like 10 threads a second, like bang, 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 bang on his website. And I'm like, yeah, that was a mistake. Stop that. It's all queued. All the micro workers are fired. They're all going. It's like, and at this time we used to have we wrote a little script that used to sit on pair on their shared hosting. And what it did is to go through the shared hosting, find all the available IP addresses, and then bind our script to all the IP addresses. So it was kind of like most probably naughty, but it's like we didn't really have proxies. We kind of just used shared hosting and their IP addresses as proxies. As they got burned, we just moved on to the shared IP address. So obviously all these were stacked up. It was almost like getting a handful of bread and throwing it to the ducks and then realizing you shouldn't have done that. I can stop throwing, but there's a handful of bread out there. What do I do? So yeah, we apologized and turned it all off, and I was not allowed to play with the that side of the code anymore. But yeah, I mean, we had when we were blog spamming or automatic commenting, we were really like down to like 10 to 20 blog posts what we'd need to get into the top 3 for any industry. So literally it was like we wanted to be number 3 for a certain keyword. We would know exactly over most probably a period of about 3 weeks, we could feed in enough blog spam links to make that happen. And if that died, then it didn't matter because it was only 3 weeks. And let's face facts, we weren't just working on one keyword, we were working on hundreds of keywords. So yeah, that was interesting times. Obviously, wouldn't do that on a client website, but when you're experimenting, you want to learn, don't you? You want to understand what are the inefficiencies of a search engine. Where do they make the mistakes? Where are those little cracks that you can make them into massive chasms? And that's what I did.
Okay, so a lot of information there. It's just really interesting.
Sorry.
So at what point, so as you started to get into SEO, you said you were doing the inkjet sites, etc., and then you moved on to doing sophisticated blog commenting, spamming. At what point, when you were kind of transitioning into this, did it really hit you that you really knew what you were doing, or that it was leveraging your abilities?
Most probably last week when this lady asked me if I'd go on a web conference thing to do pioneers of SEO. I never have. Honestly, I have got the worst imposter syndrome that you'll ever meet. I don't think that I'm clever. I don't think that I've ever done great things. I don't think I've ever done clever things. Yeah, I've built an agency. We've worked with crazy clients. I've had crazy things. I mean, I was sat in the office and one of the lads said, "I've got Kevin Rose on the phone for you." I'm like, bugger off. This is when Kevin Rose was massive, as in like Digg. It's like, no, yeah, no, you haven't. It's like, no, no. It's like, put him through. It's like, David Naylor, can I help you? And he's like, "Hi, my name's Kevin Rose. Matt Cutts said to give you a call. You'd be able to help me." And I'm like, oh shit, it's Kevin Rose. I'm like, oh my God. It's like, what's, yeah, Kev, what's wrong, mate? So we work with Digg on their conduit spam, and I'm like, no, must probably contributed to a bit of that back in the day. And told him straight, it's like, if you can't fix this, Google will kill you. And that's not Matt Cutts telling me that. That's, if I was Google, I would kill you. Because it was like there was a massive amount of conduit spam going on at the time. And you look and you go like, guys, please. And it's like, yeah, but we get so much traffic from it. And it's like, if you want traffic, go play on the M62. There's tons of it. It's like, this is not traffic you want. It's not traffic you need. Yeah, but it's great for the VCs and all this sort of stuff. It's like, it's bad traffic. And in the end, it was pretty much their downfall. You know what I mean? It's like, but he didn't listen. So, well, maybe I wasn't kind of like as convincing as I should have been for those guys. But
do you think that's what killed Digg, the spam traffic?
yeah, massively. I mean, the industry. I mean, obviously, you had Reddit moving all over the place on them as well, and they weren't interested in the automated spam that was happening. And if you're not interested in that, you're not interested in your users. And if you're not interested in your users, it's that vicious circle. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the dog chasing its tail syndrome. So yeah, to me, it's like, if they'd have fixed that, I think that if that was priority for them, then their user base would have been a priority. But it wasn't. You know what I mean? The fact that like any day of the week you could type in Viagra and there'd be a Digg page there with a Viagra link straight through. You know what I mean? It wasn't good. But getting to see their logs was awesome.
Yeah.
That was always good fun.
So just going back again, can you just talk me through, because I'm really fascinated, particularly by your thought process and how you're approaching and deconstructing problems, particularly you've just come into a new industry. SEO wasn't even SEO then, was it? And so what was your thought process as you started to problem solve, as you started to try and figure out what was going on and how to leverage?
Well, if I go back to my day job, my father-in-law owned a little backstreet garage. It was a Renault garage, and I thought it'd be interesting if I could outrank Renault for his garage in Cleckheaton. That took me about 2 months to crack that. So it's kind of one of those things where you go, well, actually, do I need to, like, you know what I mean? And it wasn't even like a keyword rich domain. You know what I mean? I hadn't even started thinking about those yet. So she's like, his brand, which was Cooper's, and I wanted to rank for Renault and Renault spares and Renault spare parts. So I did that, and all I did was I went, well, actually, put my brain on. If this is a database, like, let's have a look at the top 10 websites that are ranking in that database. Take them down, and let's have a look at what they're doing behind the scenes. And that's all I did. You know what I mean? It's like that I did the same for another company in Ripon, Trust Loft Conversions. I took them to #1 for loft conversions, which made them jump out of Ripon into Manchester and then became like a nationwide loft conversion company. So there's loads of little stories like that I'd worked through. I worked for a company called City Visitor, who were the backfeed for Yahoo Local and Google Local before Google Maps took it all of that infrastructure. So those were interesting times as well. I was more happy working on those ones, just getting the data from the upload, because obviously we still hosted it all. So I was like, this is amazing. We're going to see an insight that we've never seen before. I'd love to tell more about that, but I'm sure there's still an ND out there that would absolutely get my ass kicked from Google, most probably, on that one. But yeah, and I even then, I was like, they've got all our data. It's like once they've got all of our data, it's only going to take them a year or so before they can just turn this all off. And they did, you know what I mean? That's exactly what they did. They took it all and just went, that's it. We're not renewing next year. We've got this new shiny product. It's like, so yeah. So my process was literally look at what's working and properly look at it, not kind of like just glaze over it. Look at what's working, and be better than it. Or if it was too hard, destroy what was in there and then walk away and then come back a couple of months later and then have another go. I've done that a few times, unfortunately.
Do you think it's really important that for a really good SEO needs to be very technical? Do they need to have that kind of coding knowledge?
No, I don't think so. I'd love to say yes. You know what I mean? I would love to say that. I think if they can communicate well with their team, I mean, if you said to me, it's like, am I a great designer? I'd be like, of course, you see my logos are amazing. And then my design team be like, I'm like, so, you know what I mean? It's like, so as a designer, nah, I'm not very good. You know what I mean? As a front end designer, I'm not very good. As a on-page guy, you know what I mean? If someone said to me, Dave, I need you to write a load of title tags, I'm like, nah, that's not my cup of tea. If someone said, Dave, I've got a problem, I've only got 25% of this website indexed, I'm like, that's me. Give me the server logs, and I'm happy. You know what I mean? I'm a data geek. I'm not even that good a programmer. You know what I mean? It's like I've always had programmers that work beside me. What I think I can do is that I can see something, and I'm like, surely we can do this. And programmers 9 times out of 10, no, we can't. Well, let's have a think about it and let's come back around it. No, it's impossible. Oh, it may be possible. Well, how do we get to drop cookies out of Twitter if we want to? I don't know. It's like, let's have a look. Let's find a solution to this problem. How do we steal data from Twitter? How do we steal data from here? How do we get into there? I want to know, you know what I mean? It's like, I want to know what the top 100 Alexa websites, what is their real traffic? Well, how do you find that out? Search console. Well, how do we get search console data? Well, that was well written about, and I got into a load of trouble for that. But you know what I mean? So once you realize that if the information is there, how do you get it? You know what I mean? How do you get that information? And what can you learn by asking stupid questions? You know what I mean? Because people go, ask a stupid question. Like, no. It's only stupid answers. Yeah. And sometimes those stupid answers will give you that little bit of information you need to go, that's that eureka moment. You know what I mean? Eureka moment when you go, actually, if Google is a backlink authoritative kind of search engine, and I've done everything that my on page is absolutely bang on, and it's like as fast as humanly possible. The only difference is that website has got more better links than me. Well, I need to know what those links are. Well, how do you do that? Well, you spider the web, don't you? I mean, that's cost me thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pounds that, you know what I mean, trying to spider the web. You know what I mean? Do I take on Majestic? Do I take on SEO Moz? Do I take on Google? It's like, and every time, you know what I mean? I even had Google spidering Google. That was a weird time. You know what I mean? But you look at it and you go, like, how information, that's all you need. If you've got good information and you can look at that information and go, I need the best infographic possible. I can't do that, but if I know that that's going to get me a load of links, then I'll turn to my infographics guy and go, build me an infographic. Oh, I need videographer, build me a video. I mean, I need programming expertise in, I don't know, Python. I'll go to my Python programmer. What I'm good at is just identifying what I think the issues are, and then build a team around that. So yeah, I see people out there that've got no programming expertise at all, but they can see, You know what I mean? It's like that they can see what the problem is, or they can see a solution to what that problem is. It's like now I'm looking at this, and it's like we're looking at each other via a video camera. I don't need to know how that video camera works. Yeah, I don't even know how the software works behind it. What I need to know is that if I click that button that's got like Zoom written on it, this all works. And if it doesn't work, who do I call? And I guess that in my life, I've always been a bit like that. If I can break it, someone can fix it. It's just getting the people who can fix it around you.
So just going back, you said that when you were 9, you were tearing apart the Betamax video to understand how it worked. Is that were you always pulling electronics to pieces from an early age?
And anything, bikes, you know what I mean? Anything that if something caught my attention, then I'd want to know it worked to the best of my ability. And 9 times out of 10, my perceived ability was much higher than where my real ability was. I mean, we built me and my sister, my cousin built a tree house, but we wanted a lift in it. So why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? So we built out of a dustbin, a rope and some pulleys and a counterweight, we built a lift. And it's kind of like, well, all my mates thought it was amazing. I'm like, no. It was just a problem because my sister couldn't really climb up this rope to get into the treehouse. We had to build something for her. So we built a lift. You know what I mean? So it's, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't take laptops apart anymore because I'm kind of like, I'm not that stupid. But even now, you know what I mean? It's like, if there's, I don't know, a solar light that's not working, I'll take it apart and see if the solar cell's still working. Is it the LED bulb that's gone in it? Is it the battery? Is it just full of water? Can I fix it? And it's like, what, £5, if that? You know what I mean? I'll spend more time messing about with it than I'd just going on Amazon and buying a new one. But yeah, it's always, I don't know. It's like, most probably like ADHD or OCD or some other anagram that they will come up with today for kids that were special needs, I guess I was.
Do you think that, did you ever consider being an engineer, an actual engineer, not a computer engineer?
Well, I was a printer hardware engineer. That's what, you know what I mean? That's what
I mean, actually like a structural engineer.
Oh God, no. Oof,
no.
And the amount of things that I've broken. Can you imagine? Oh, here's a new 20-story building. Who's the engineer on that? Dave Naylor. Which is the safest floor then? The 20th floor, because that's a long way down, or the bottom floor where the other 20 floors are going to fall on it? No. I know. No.
So it was always electronics then?
Yeah, electronics, and yeah, always. I mean, it's like, I remember literally, I must have been, what, 15, maybe 14. And I most probably cried for 3-4 days. Every time I thought about it, I was just like absolutely devastated. And literally, I don't know if you remember, but we used to have cards and you used to punch holes in them, and you get a big stack of them and you put them in a card reader, and that was your program. And I dropped it. Dropped it in a way. And everyone said, don't you sequence your cards? I'm like, just blank cards, holes in them. I'm like, oh my God. That is like months and months and months. And these were manual hole punch. You know what I mean? It's like you'd have like basically 8-bit switches, click, 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 press, print it, put it in your pack, run your cards through. Yep, LED came on, brilliant. Click, other LED came on. Hello world, something like that. Yeah, I dropped my cards. I'm like, oh my God, waiting for the bus. It was like, I was like, that was it. From that day forward, I was very much on the lines of like, I need to make sure that doesn't ever happen again. And it happened every month. Literally, there'd be always something I'd break, and I'm like, well, does it really matter? You know what I mean? It's like, to me, that was my world. You know what I mean? It's like I'd spent months and months and months and months. I'd spend weekends sat on a ZX Spectrum coding a game. You know what I mean? There was like me and 3 friends who were like, one of them's a brilliant games programmer. We all got Amigas, and we used to sit in one of our bedrooms, just coding, just writing code after code after code, just playing games. And I'd be always the guy that write a bad bit of code or the like most amazing bit of code. And like, but you could never tell which it was going to be until it was run. And that was always my issue. You know what I mean? There was really good coders that could code straight. I was all over the place. I would look at other people's code and go, I think I can improve that. Broke it. Oops.
Do you think though that is probably what significantly contributes so much to your success at problem solving, is that you're not really afraid to break stuff. You'll just jump in, you'll try stuff, break it.
Oh, massively so. Massively so. I mean, I would honestly say, well, when Bronco's ever been at its best, most like prolific, is when I've surrounded myself with people that can fix the stuff that I can break. You know what I mean? So it was like, you look at like different programmers that have been through my fingers, so to speak. When I was doing the Viagra stuff, I mean, that was just like so insane. I'd come in the morning, like, I've got this idea, and it's like by the afternoon it was being prototyped. By the next morning, we were rolling with it, and it was like, oh, this is amazing. What's the next thing? And it's like AdSense came along. We even had a directory generator party. I've got hold of a few million keywords, and we had a program. Literally, all it did was buy a domain, populate it with AdSense, and then ads that looked like AdSense that were just text. And those texts came straight from, so we'd crawl AdWords and stick AdWords on a page for a keyword, bit of text underneath it we take three or five pages off the top 10, take them, crawl them, take a paragraph out of each one, stick on the bottom, stick a load of ads on it, pushed it out, £30,000. And it's like, that's just like press button, print money, press button, print money. Oh, it needs some links. We've got that old blog spammer kicking around. Yeah, we have. Fire that up. Recrawl all the pages, find the ones that are now dead and that don't use a no follow. Boom, off we go. And it was just putting jigsaws together. And it was just like, oh, directory generator too. Then someone outed me at a conference, and I'm like, oh, that's shitty. So that got closed down. Didn't matter. It's that's the sort of thing that we used to do because it was fun. It was like the learning curve things. Could we actually crawl Google, take Google AdWords, put them on a page because they've got to be relevant, take the landing pages for the organic, scrape out the content out of that, and then display AdSense on that. So take from Google, give it back to Google, and earn money. The answer was yes, you could. And it was like, well, why wouldn't you do it? Google engineers used to say, why would you do it? I'm like, why would you let me? Your job is to stop people like me. You know what I mean? It's like, well, why am I sat in your offices now, idiots? Do you see what I'm looking at? Do you see that I've just seen that Matt Cutter's desk there? And it's like, why do you know that's Matt Cutter's? Because it's the only one that's got a massive box that says DNS records on it. And I'm like, that's good information. You need to come down this corridor a little bit. Hi, Matt. Just seen your office. So it's like why? What? It's like, I don't know. I mean, they must have got a totally different way of looking at it. It's like, let's bring this lunatic in, see what he knows, see what he does. He's the guy that broke into Webmaster Tools and upset us all. But yeah, it's like it's just insane.
Sorry, I want to talk about Google in a minute, but just going back, you mentioned earlier about how you took the data out of Google Search Console. I don't know that story. Could you tell me the story, please?
So I was really good friends with Vanessa Fox at the time, and she was head of Webmaster Tools. And I'd just been to a conference, and I don't know what it was. It was something that, you know, when you see something out the corner of your eye, and you think, that's interesting. Now, I knew in the past there'd been an issue with Google on authentication. So what would happen if you'd authenticate in one product, the cookie in it would let you authenticate in another product. It's like, that could be useful at some other day in time. So authenticated into webmaster tools. Yep. And that authentication give me a list of basically all the websites that I'd added under my name. So anyway, I was laughing with a guy who was a friend of mine, and I noticed that literally the way that it was unencoded, it was basically the domain name on the end of the string. And I was like, that's interesting. So sat back in my hotel room, I was like, end of the string, www.ibm.com. Oh shit, I'm in. I'm in. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Oh my
So
God.
I'm like, telephone. It's like, I need you to write me a script now that goes through, scrapes all of Alexa for the top 1,000 websites, and then goes to Google, scrapes Google for all of these, go in and basically take all the keyword data now. I'm like, right, cool. I'm like, so it's like next morning, it's like, we're doing it, we're getting all the information. I'm like, this is brilliant. This is going to be gold dust. Anyway, we hadn't quite finished it. So literally I was like, right, I've got to get on an airplane, get back home, fire an email off to Matt Coates. I think we blogged about it somewhere on David Naylor. So I fired an email off and said, look, it's like, I feel that I need to tell people about this, because on the flight back, I kind of like, this is really bad. There's information. I mean, it wasn't as bad. If you got access to it now, it'd be really bad. Back in them, you only had like so many keyword queries, so many backlinks, which is what I was really after. And from there, you kind of like, you were limited in what you know, early day stuff. Vanessa fell out with me big time. It was kind of like, we blogged about it. And I said to Matt, I said, look, he said, oh, he was back to back at conferences. He was flying to another conference. I didn't realize that. So I'd given the heads up and said, look, we're pushing this out UK time first thing. I said, it's an easy fix. Told him what the fix was. And the email kind of like just didn't get through to him before it went live. And like there was a full shitstorm. In fact, Sergey was like, he was like, when we met him, he was like, it's like, oh God, they hate me. I said, but at least I just didn't keep the access. I mean, that would have been naughty. You know what I mean? It's like when we found the Twitter one. You know what I mean? It's like we could have stole everyone's credentials. You know what I mean? If you were logged in, I could get your username and password. And if you were also logged in, I could give you any cookie from any website in the world. You know what I mean? So if I could have been the biggest Plenty of Fish affiliate, or 888 or eBay. I could have been any. You know, I didn't use it to that. You know, I mean, that was evil. I mean, what I did was that I made it snow on a few screens and stuff like that, because obviously I could load JavaScript. So once I could do that, we told them. We told them 3 times, in fact. I had to emailed Evie, didn't do anything about it. Told Kevin Rose, so he had a word with Evie, still didn't do anything about it. And who was the final guy? Oh, it's a guy, you won't even know, a guy that worked for a telecommunications company that they were looking at investing infrastructure inside Twitter at the time. And I said, no, you don't want to do that. It's flawed technology. And he's like, really? Sure. Closed it down. So money. But yeah, it was like, so once I got in and got all the data, I was like, yeah, I'll out it. Doesn't matter. I'm very good at like finding stuff and going, actually, I'm not going to abuse that. I don't want to abuse that unless it's harmless abuse. Like when we used to abuse Encarta for backlinks, that was harmless. I mean, where else could you get PA9 links from for free? You know what I mean? It was awesome. It was like, I even outed myself out at a conference over that. I knew they were closing down Encarta, and I said, how easy it is that people are like, which is the most important website to rank in? Microsoft Bing, or was it Microsoft Bing at the time? Or Google. I'm like, oh, Microsoft Bing. Quickest way to get PA9 links. And everyone's like, what? What did he say? Yeah. How easy is it to rank in Bing? Oh, everyone's like, yeah, piece of piss. It's like, yeah, so why don't you do it? It's like, what do you mean? It's like, rank for your keyword. Yeah, okay, brilliant. So, right, go to Encarta, search for that keyword in Encarta. What do you get? If it's like something like, I don't know, 1066, you'll get a big article about 1066, and you'll get 3 web links. Have a look at them. Oh shit, yeah, the Microsoft web links, hard coded into the page. No just followed links. So if you ranked in Bing, you also got the top 3 rankings on the Encarta page. All I do is chuck a couple of links to that Encarta page with the anchor text you want to rank for. Google follow those links, pick up Encarta, boom. Clients' websites love them. Almost good as like .gov links, but it's like not quite as good. Yeah, so it was like Encarta. It was brilliant. When they said they were closing that down, I was like, oh, that's a pain. But yeah, you just find something, break it.
Dave, and you have imposter syndrome.
Massively so. Honestly.
Really?
Yeah, massively so.
Okay.
Seriously.
Just moving on to, well, actually moving back to, as you mentioned a little bit yourself about when you went into Google, I do believe that you've had several occasions where you've been in a room with Matt Cutts and the Google guys, and they're actually picking your brains. So can you tell me a little bit about like the first times you went to Google?
And first time, I don't know what the first time would have been. Probably the most memorable time was when Tim Mayer from Yahoo Search stood up at a conference and said, we have the biggest index, and put a number out there. So when Google used to say how many web pages they indexed on the site, and it was like, oh my God, Yahoo is bigger than Google. And I was like, ooh. And Matt was like, didn't say anything. And I was like, after the present meet the engines, after that, Matt came to me, was like, what do you think? And I'm like, I need to think about it. I need to look at the numbers. I said, I'll get back to you. And he said, oh, you're going to Google Dance tonight? I'm like, yeah. I said, okay then. And it's like the original gang of 3 was like me, Chris Ramondi, and Jen Slegg. So Jen was like the white hat AdSense queen. Chris was like the guy that made $1 million in porn but didn't quite understand it, but got everything burnt. I mean, everything. Matt burned everything to the ground, but he'd already made his money, so he was just doing conferences to meet friends. And then you had like this crazy Brit guy, me. So we were sat with Sergey and Larry, and we were chatting about just random stuff. And we got onto a bit about AdSense. The reason why Google would ban an AdSense. I said, well, question. It's like, why would you ban a website in Google that had AdSense on it, but you wouldn't ban the AdSense account? And Sergey was like, well, how do you know that? Matt was like, this is the guy that is like, well, and it's like, Matt was like, well, my argument is if you ban them from one Google product, you ban them from every Google product. And I was like, to me, that was kind of like, it was almost like a real big shot across the brow, because it's like, what I felt he was saying was that if we ban you from search, and we can find you've got Search Console access, we'll ban you from that. If we can find you've got an AdWords account, we'll ban you from that. If we find you've got an AdSense account, we'll ban you from that. In fact, we will ban you from Google. I'm like, shit, that is like heavy stuff. And then Sergey said, because those sites still rank on Bing, and we'll get money from our competitors. And I'm like, boom, that's it. I'm happy with that. I'm happy. I'm over the moon. I'm like, Jen was like, really like not happy about it. Chris thought it was hilarious. And then the subject of Yahoo came up, and Matt was like, so what do you think? I said, I think they're counting assets. Matt turned to Sergey, it's like, told you. And it's like, what do you mean? I said, well, I think that Google counts an HTML entity and images as like separate things. I said, that's fine. I said, yeah, but we add our image search to. I said, yeah, but you don't add your JavaScript and you don't add your CSS. Now I said, I had quick estimations on how quick they've went from there to there. I said, I reckon they're just counting all the entities. So I reckon a JavaScript file is counted as a page and a CSS file is counted as a page. And then once me and Matt kind of like both agreeing with that, Larry was kind of like, he was pissing around with this camera at the time. Couldn't get a video camera to one of the cleverest men I know, and you can't get a video camera to work. Jesus Christ. I'm like,
you should have told him to get a Betamax.
I'm like, I mean, it was a big one of these like big ass things. I'm like, there's a lot of buttons on it, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's just one button that says record. You press that, point it, go. He'd been walking around videoing people. It's like crazy. And Larry was like, that kind of makes sense, you know. And Matt was like, been saying it all day. It's like you just needed a third party on the outside to say the same sort of thing. Not as bad as like I went and Microsoft flew me to Seattle, over to Redmond rather, to do a presentation for their engineers. It's so funny. So I was like, I spent most probably a week just like totally going through all of the major spam techniques that was happening in Microsoft and said how they could fix them all. And the only thing that the engineers could say, but why would people do that? But why would they do that? I'm like, oh, that was me. Sorry. That is actually, they're my sites. Them. I'm like, sorry. Yeah. How you could stop me doing that would be to do this. And it was that. And I'm like, but why would you do that? And I'm like, why wouldn't I? And they're like, but why would you? I'm like, it's like, they were like, Tarek was like, don't ask him these questions. Stop it. But yeah, it's like, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? It's like, if you can be number one for credit card at the top of Bing, why wouldn't you? And it's like, but surely it makes more sense for like MasterCard or Visa. And it's like, well, it does behind me, but I'd rather be there above them if you don't mind. Yeah, so it's kind of like, so those are the sort of conversations that we'd have. Most of my conversations with Matt, in fairness, was very much on lines of like, how do you think we're doing from a spam point of view? Because he knew that I had ears to the ground, and obviously I was in that mix all the time. And then sometimes defending his corner, where people had like out him for saying something, and I'd be like, yeah, that he didn't say that. It's like, and that was in the speaker's room, so that shouldn't be really said, and it was a private conversation. I was there, so I can say that that wasn't said. And then things like that, he'd be like, have we fixed this problem? Do you think that this is going to fix it? Doing this. Had a big conversation. But remember, they used to sandbox everything. So if you got a new domain, you'd pop it in, it'd go to number 10, and then disappear, and you'd be like, shit. And then you buy an aged domain, and that would pop in, and that'd stay around, and then they fixed that, so that would go out in the sandbox. And you're like, this is insane. It's like, and he was like, and I was saying to Matt, I said, what the problem is, you're stopping real sites from ranking. He's like, no, we're not. So that was kind of like, why isn't he? This is interesting. So my mission then was like, I need to break this sandbox. I need to find out how to do this. And then I did, and it worked for about 8-9 months. Then Barry from Make Me Top outed me at an SES conference in Sweden. I'm like, dude, why would you even say that? And I mean, it's a great story. It's like, he didn't realize, I think everyone realized, you know what I mean, that what I'd been doing is that as an ISP, I was also a Central NIC reseller, and Central NIC were the guys that were UK.com, GB.com, GB.org, this sort of thing. And so what I did was I registered like inkjet.uk.com, because avon.uk.com, which was a makeup company, Avon Makeup, was ranking for number 1 for Avon, and that never had, you know what I mean? It was always like avon.co.uk from the city or whatever it was, or it was like a community website. And this UK.com popped in. I'm like, I'm the only person that's noticed that. So I set up spammed. I mean, I went so aggressive so quickly, it was insane. So what I did is I had a order.uk.com, and I subbed it. So I went like inkjet.order.uk.com. If you went to order.uk.com, you would get a web page that says sign up for your free subdomain. Yeah, here, click enter. I thought that will stop everyone thinking it was me, even though it's hosted on my IP address. No one will think that I'm that stupid to let spammers do that. As soon as you typed in any keyword, it went into my database. It also threw back an error saying, my SQL error, sorry, that this moment in time, due to high demand and we're having problems with the database, we will be back up shortly. Take that keyword, scrape the data, chuck it back up there, few hundred links into it, ping. So we had all these spammers giving us all of their golden keywords that they were going for into this order GB system that we were just pushing out. It's just like breaking the sandbox. It's like whoop whoop. Had about 4 or 5 of these domains doing exactly the same thing. You put your keywords in, it would break, and then I would publish your keywords a week later and make them rank. Anyway, Barry at Made Me Top said, I can tell you how to get out of the sandbox. You just go to this order GB and you sign up there. And then someone said, no, it's broken. I'm like, oh, you're fucking joking me. Don't, let's not discuss this. Anyway, it started to get discussed and I was just like, so I just put my hand up and said, hi, Barry, it's Dave Naylor from UK. Order GB, that's my mate. If you want to have a pint afterwards, and I'll explain it to you. And I was like, yeah, Matt, it's like, I've already texted my guys to close it all down. Cheers, see you later, bye. I was just like, bollocks! That was a right little generator. But yeah, the subdomain. Wow, that was golden.
How do you come up with these ideas?
Alcohol. Just alcohol. How would you not come up with it? You know what I mean? There's a problem. So if someone says you can't do something, do you just take that? You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's like they're lying. You know what I mean? It's an out and out lie. You know what I mean? It's like if someone says you can't spam something. Really? You're actually going to go out and say this? Because that is insane. You know what I mean? It's like you don't. It's like when what was the idiot's name? Jason Calcanis. Yes, ran in with him a few times. Stood on the stage and said SEO's dead, and I'm like, great bit of link bait, but that's rubbish. SEO isn't dead. And then he kept on spamming Google, and then Google banned him. And I said to him, did it hurt? And he's like, well, he said, look, you stood on the stage and said, proxy quote, Google won't ban us because we make them so much money in AdSense. We're invincible. All we've got to do is put a page up with the keywords in the title. We're number one. I'm like, bye then. And it was 6 months later. Was it Panda? Yeah, Panda came along and absolutely ate him. And I don't think many people realize this, but like when Panda 1 came out, if you hadn't fixed the issues by Panda 2, that's double trouble. Panda 3, you're done. You never come back. That website's dead forever. It's like, unless you might be able to release it today if you're really, really lucky. And it was kind of like, it was like different tiers of hell. You know what I mean? So if you got into it, if you got into it and scrabbled your way back out, and you're like, I'm out, and then Panda 2 came and you go, ooh, I'm back in again. You like, scrabble, back out. And it's like, you could keep fighting it, but if you did nothing, like Mahalo did, it's like, yeah, you know at level 5, and it's like, oh my God, you've got to like battle the 12-headed dragon naked to get out of that level now. And it's like, you're never getting out of there. Never. But yeah, and I'm like, that's perfect. It's like, obviously it caused a load of issues, you know what I mean, for legit sites as well. And that was a lot. I mean, that even if like, no matter how many strings you could pull, if you were like 3 levels deep of Panda, you couldn't get out of it. No one could get you out. It was horrible. Yeah, that was that. They were not happy times. Those.
Did you make affiliate money in the early days?
A little bit. Yeah. Well, There's a funny story. Doug Scott from Car Rentals rang me up and he said, if you're not going to do anything with that traffic, let me do it. I'm like, Doug, what are you on about? He said, I know you're number one for credit cards in Bing and you're this loan to number one. He said, you're not monetizing it all. I said, yeah, it was an experiment. He said, monetize it. I'm like, can't be bothered. And that was my issue. You know what I mean? So I was quite a successful Viagra spammer. Made quite a bit of money out of that, and then burnt it all down and became the SEO for the client. And he said, "Oh, no, I don't mind." I'm like, "Dude, seriously?" I said, "He said honestly." He's like, "No, really, I don't mind." I'm like, "Okay, we'll give it a couple of months, yeah, and then we'll see how it goes." And at the time, it's like stupidity. So at the time, you'd get like a URL, made up domain now, because I don't want to, because it was stupid. So maybe the Viagra company is like Alta Viagra, as in Alta Vista. So it's like www.alta Viagra /AFF /12345, and 12345 is your affiliate number. So if you went to that page, it didn't do anything, just dropped it basically tracked it in the back end, and then if anyone bought Viagra off the website, 30-day cookie, thank you very much. So I'm like, easiest way for me to do this. And he was like, yeah, if you build a website and you take this information and you link through to this page, and if they click on that link, and then it's like, as soon as they land on your page, you get commission. So the only thing you can't do, and he's like, well, unless you can do it, is PPC. And I'm like, why is that? I said, Google just won't let you PPC it. And I'm like, can I buy traffic? He said, we've tried it before. It's like, normally the cost of entry for buying traffic and what you get back from it, you lose money. I'm like, well, okay, then, not a problem. So I thought about it. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, shit. Within 3 weeks, you typed in his brand name, and the number one result was AltaVista /AFF /12345. The number two result, altavista.co.uk, end of. And I'm like, yeah, you should fix that really. So I went out and found a load of affiliate programs that didn't redirect you or bounce you back to the main domain, and hit them quite hard for a little while. But again, as soon as I'd done it, I said to him, like, right, I'm on retainer. Can we fix this silliness of me outranking you for your brand? I said, all my traffic, I'm not even bothered about ranking for. I've got sites that rank for Viagra. I'm not even bothered about ranking your website for Viagra, because Viagra results are all mine and another friend, and your brand is mine. And he's like, well, how have you done that? I said, well, because all I've done in Google is I've just said the most important page for your brand, yeah, is that page. And all I've done is just chucked a few thousand links at it, and Google now, because no one links to Viagra, I said, apart from these really authoritative websites that are linking to that page. And it's like, sorry. Yeah, so in the affiliate world, I dabbled, dropped a few cookies here and there. I cleaned up a lot of stuff as well, for clients, that side of it. But if I noticed it was going on, I would always outreach to their in-house team.
See, it's quite interesting that, I mean, especially in the early days, as you know, there's a lot of people out there, they made a lot of money, a hell of a lot of money, and then retired.
Yeah.
And, you know, somebody of your ability and your mindset, you know, you could have absolutely cleaned up and made an absolute fortune. But you've always been really focused on the agency. So what do you think that? Why?
Because I know a load of people that didn't really make a load of money and just fell by the wayside, and I'm in real jobs now, I guess. And what my wake up moment, I think, was most probably one of the, but we rolled out a directory generator, and we just built a multi-platform blog system. So basically, we're using a Nominate Stack, which is the domain availability checker, and then anything that was dropped within 3 days, we'd pick it up and then we'd spider the content in either Wayback or Google Cache or Bing Cache. We'd repurpose it, chuck it back onto a blog, and then host it, and that was all automated. And the idea was going to build a big network out and literally either use it for links if there was good equity in the site, or use it for AdSense. But we had a directory generator that was doing a big keyword thing. We had the Overture keyword database. I think at one point everybody owned that database. So it was like, I don't know, about 30 million keywords. So you had a lot to go at. So you put in one keyword, single keyword like meat, I don't know, random. And then you pull out everything. There was 4 to 5 keyword phrases, 3 to 4 keyword phrases, and you build up, and it'd be like, I'm talking like internet litter. I mean, this was like literally looking at, like, have you ever seen like the pictures of Glastonbury after the festival? That's what we were creating, and it was horrible. I mean, it was horrible, and it was making not crazy like retirement money, but making like much more than client work was making. And then a lot of it got burnt down overnight, and it was like, well, do I want to risk these guys' livelihoods? Because that's what I was doing. You know what I mean? It was like this burn and churn attitude. They all got the same salary week in, week out. You know what I mean? It's like, if I didn't make it big one month, then that was on me. I'd have to still pay their salaries. If I made it super big, then I'd go and buy something nice for myself and I'd still pay their salaries. But there was that kind of wave where I just felt this is getting to a point where if I get a couple of bad months, I might not be able to pay their salaries, and they're going to pay that. Now these guys have grown up with me. They're buying houses and getting married and having families, and I put my sensible hat on and went, you know what? It's like, I'm going to have to start thinking about shelving the affiliate game. You know what I mean? The time I was working for like in the casino stuff, I was working for like 888 and companies like that. I was working for Fly BMI at the time. Who else were we working with? Digg had come and gone. I mean, but there were some major crazy big household names, and we were working for the DVLA and stuff like this, you know what I mean? So it's like, you got to the point where it's like, it's a 50-50 thing, and I think we were most probably turning a couple of million at the time, and you look like, how much of this spamming and jamming? I mean, it's great. It's like, it's a high that you'll never ever feel. You know what I mean? You wake up in the morning and the servers are absolutely, oh, what's that noise? That is human traffic. And it's like, and it's amazing. And then as you walk in, it's deathly silence. You're like, what's that? That's Matt Cutt and his boys at work, by the looks of it. But you know what I mean? But you can always go and get another client. You know what I mean? You can always find a client in need. I think that was the thing for me, was that the early days, it was so wild west that it was just insane. It was every morning you'd wake up with like this new crazy idea. And it was like, hell, how can we do this? You know what I mean? What do we need to do? It's like, I remember like we were getting a new fiber line put in at work. And he's like, how many IPs do you want? How many IPs can I have? You can have a Class C if you want. Can I have 2? Can't see why not. Brilliant. 2 Class Cs, please. What are you going to do with them? None of your bloody business. They're my IPs now. And those Class Cs I've had for years and years and years. I mean, there's a shortage of IP addresses, not in my office, but bloody loads of them. You know what I mean? So it was like, it was just insane. You know what I mean? It was just like, I mean, it's different now. You know what I mean? Without a question of a doubt, it's like, it's almost like people don't mess up as much. I mean, most probably the last one that was so bad was I was working for a bank, and literally they had 4 different front-loading servers. 2 of them had robots.txt files on them that blocked everything. 2 of them had nothing on them, but you'd only ever show 1 at a time. And depending on which one they pushed out, you'd lose all your search engine traffic because they'd block it all. And depending on which server they're doing the updates on, you'd get 2 copies of the website indexed. And I'm like, we can fix this easily. And they were like, how? It's like, sack him, and him. It's like, because they are idiots. They're absolute idiots. It's like, well, we'll just switch. It's like, just you don't put a website live with a robot stock text that's blocking. You told us to put it on there because you had 4 websites indexed. You had www1, www2, www3, and www. It's like 1, 2, and 3 need to be the development servers. www is the live server. Yeah, but when we switch the servers, take off the robust text of www1 and put it on www. It's not that hard. You know what I mean? But it's like, it's stuff like that that you end up in this kind of like mundane kind of like nothing. There's nothing out there that I feel at the moment is broken enough that needs fixing.
If you've broken everything now and everything's been fixed.
That's it. Yeah, it's like, oh, they fixed all of that. And I mean, back in the day, I used to always say, it's like Google used to say things like, you can't link spam. Most probably, I honestly feel that they felt that. You know what I mean? I think the things that, I don't think they went out and just lied. You know what I mean? I think they actually felt that. I think over time, they've just actually started to do the things that they were saying back in the day. You know what I mean? It's like the brands thing. You know, when they rolled out all the brand side of stuff, that was game changing. You know what I mean? When you could outrank, like I say, IBM for IBM. You know what I mean? That was just stupidity. They should never be able to do that, even if it was IBM subdomain encarta.com or whatever. But you shouldn't be able to do that. But you can't. Obviously, you can't really do that sort of thing anymore now.
You know, you've told me so many things today, but one question I like to ask is, you know, there's 20, 25 years distance. Is there anything that you can share with me that you've never shared before that you've done that, you know, maybe you shouldn't have done, or something that works really well?
I'm quite an open guy, so I do tend to like share everything. I suppose that I never kind of like really. I mean, it's not even rocket science. I would imagine that anyone would have done this. It's like when I got all of the Search Console data, the backlink profile for the top 100 websites, I crawled all of those to find which ones had the least outgoing links, and they were my link targets. And some of them were exploitable. A few of them were. So that was one. Most expensive link I ever bought was off a education website, and it cost the client £10,000 a month. It was a PR10 website, and it took him from nowhere to #1 for years. Literally, that one link, that was it. Changed nothing. I said, just buy a link on that website. He came back. I bought the link. It's like £10,000 a month. I'm like, oh. It literally. I mean, it was in an industry that was very, very lucrative. I was instrumental, as I said earlier, with closing down or trying to close down the conduit spam in Digg. Not many people knew that at the time. That I think a lot of people didn't realize that if I found things that were exploitable, I would 9 times out of 10 tell the owners if it could damage them. So like the Google Web Search Console stuff, I told them that. And found another 2 exploits in Search Console that I let them know about. What was golden? Oh, so we still refer to things as golden bullets and silver bullets. So a golden bullet would be something that you'd buy on a website as a link, and it would fire a golden bullet into your website, and everything would be golden and sparkly. A silver bullet would fire a bullet into your website, and you'd be the werewolf, and it would kill you dead. Used to use those bad boys on bad people. 301 redirects for getting people out of penalties. that used to really work when they fixed that. 302s used to work when they fixed that. 307s used to work. I don't think anyone realised about the 307s. If you 301 out of the penalty and you did it to a subdomain and 301 the subdomain back to your root domain, that would get out of the penalty. But when Google caught you doing that, they put a manual penalty on you. And if you 301 the manual penalty, Google used to think that you were just trying to get back out of it and penalise the target website. You'd never target your own website after that. I used to own mattcuts.co.uk and tmayer.co.uk. What else? I made Ask Jeeves go really, really slow for a week by accident. I honestly thought, never ever told anyone this. Never told anyone this. I had an issue with it was the Ask Jeeves thing that made me trigger. I had an issue with someone scraping one of my websites. But they used to always dip into my cookie bin, and it's like why would you even go there? You know that bad things live in there, because I put bad things in there. So one of the things that we learned quite quickly is the way that they were crawling. If you crawl something that is gzipped, when it gets to your server, it unzips. A friend of mine, Arsnake, who's a mate. I mean, this guy is so freaking clever. It's unbelievable. He said, gzip bomb them. I'm like, ooh, what is this gzip bomb? Basically, ones and zeros, gzip down. It's like 4 or 5K. It'll open up into like gigabytes. So I told my programmer this. He's like, I've had an idea. So off he went. I'm like, brilliant. He said, he's taking it. He's taking the payload. It's amazing. And I'm like, oh. And I was like, so where's his IP address? Oh yeah, it's down. It's like, this is amazing. I said, so what do we do? He said, so a gzip, basically wrote a program to gzip that basically down a terabyte of data. And then I cloned those terabytes of data, other gzips, and gzipped all those together. So God knows how big it was. I said, well, no server would take that. And he's like, well, yeah, exactly. I said, well, where's he hosted? Oh, no. Oh, that looks like an Amazon IP address. It's like, do you know how much that's going to cost him? I said, oh, us. And he's like, how do you mean? I said, well, you pay for data storage. Amazon's the only company that can most probably take that much data. I hope, honestly, oh my God, no. Yeah, that was. I've never owned up to that. But that was a biggie. That was a big gzip bomb. That was massive. That was the sort of thing you kept every time the telephone rang. You go, oh, thank God for that. It's no one. Telephone. Oh, it's no one. Yeah, so it's like that was that's must be the closest we've sailed to the wind. Yeah, I didn't like that one.
Oh God, it's been great talking to you, Dave. I mean, just one last question. I probably know the answer to this, to be fair, but if you could go back to the beginning, would you do anything differently?
Oh, hell no.
No, I thought you would say that.
If anything, I would go harder and faster. No. I've got no regrets. Of all the stuff that I've done, it's like I've got no regrets. I don't think that personally I've ever hurt anybody with the stuff that I've done, apart from the G's. But we put loads of blocks in place to stop that guy.
Do you know who it was?
No, it was a Russian guy. It was definitely from Russia. But they never came back. Ever. You know what I mean? They never, ever came back. I'm quite happy and content with my life. I always said I never wanted to sort of like live in a big house on a hill, driving flash cars, and have people working for me that can't afford to put heating on or anything like that. It's always been about sharing the wealth, I guess.
I know that we've not mentioned Becky, your wife, and I know she's obviously always worked in Bronco with you. Do you think she's been pretty instrumental in the success?
Her first introduction to Bronco was she had to come in and sack the dyslexic content writer that I employed. A, because I was stupid and employed a dyslexic content writer, and B, because I just wasn't strong enough to sack him because he'd stopped using his software to read back the content, so therefore he was just pushing out rubbish. And it's like, so yeah, I make mistakes. It's like, who doesn't? You know what I mean? It's like, but yeah, she is amazing. She's an amazing woman. I wouldn't. I mean, it's like I can't sing her praises enough. You know, what I mean? Everything she does, she kind of like does it 110%. You know, what I mean, she's an amazing leader. I always say that Becky runs a company. I'm just one of the SEOs, and that is true. You know what I mean? She does everything.
Sounds like you have perfect partnership and you're very lucky.
Oh, perfect partnership from my side point of view. From her side, not so much so. Jesus, she could have done a lot better. I don't think I could have done much better.
Well, on that positive note, I think we'll just wrap up. And as I say, I could carry on talking to you for another several hours, but I know you've got client meetings coming up. So I'll say thank you very much for your time, Dave, and hopefully speak to you again in the near future.